Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Combat Sports UK MMA podcast. We're getting on now. It's episode 17, I believe. Coming off a pretty entertaining UFC 296. Somebody didn't turn up, not naming any names, but he's an absolute moron. Our boy Leon Edwards got it done. Paddy Pimblett got it done. A happy day for the Brit. I'm joined here, as always, by Nathan and John. Nathan, how are you doing, mate?
I thought you were talking about Alex then, mate, when you said that some idiot didn't turn up.
Fight night only. Fight night only. John, how are you?
It's all good, mate.
I'm good. By yourself?
Good, mate. Good. I'm not suffering off of a night of sleep. I did a Colby Covington. I talked the talk. I said I was going to stay up, and then I just didn't.
And didn't show up.
I didn't show up. Let's jump right into it. I mean, first thing I want to do is kind of shine a light on Leon Edwards' performance. We can bash Colby a little bit afterwards, but first of all, let's jump straight in with that performance from Leon Rocky Edwards. Nathan, what did you make of the performance? What did you make of the fight overall?
Look, I've seen stuff, mate, and I'm sure you've all seen it too, where, there's a lot of people taking to social media, fighters, Islam Makhachev, most prominently today I've seen, sort of slating Leon's performance a little bit, and sort of talking this, that, and all the rest of it. I mean, my view on it is this. It's the job of the contender to go out there and make a fight of it with the champion. And Leon was winning that fight comfortably, doing exactly what he was doing. And it was for Colby to switch something up, and he never did. So for me, Leon just won the fight at a canter. It was a piece of piss for him, mate. He absolutely waltzed it. He was never threatened. He was never in any kind of scrutiny. There was never a moment where he was under any kind of, not like the Usman fight where you got to pull it out the fire, son. There was none of that needed. It was honestly, mate. They that corner and Leon himself must have been thinking, I cannot believe how easy this is. But I will like you said, we'll talk about Colby a little later on. But for me, the big thing for what we need to talk about with Leon is just that he's just so good, mate. I mean, if you look at those, all right, Colby didn't do Colby, but I would argue that Colby didn't do Colby because of how sharp and how accurate he knew Leon was. And I think once he actually got in there with him, he just didn't want to get into range. And Leon kept him at that distance. It's like I said in the preview of this, I was saying Leon's not bothered about Colby shooting. He won't be concerned with that. He won't play that game of kind of panicking about the wrestling, and he didn't. Not once. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that that's the kind of game he was playing, he wasn't kind of in a defensive waiting for Colby to make his moves. Leon just kept him at the end of his distance and just dictated the fight from start to finish. Was it an exciting fight? No. It was a clinic from Leon, and it was honestly Leon Edwards in second gear.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, one thing that stood out to me straight away, I think after about a minute of the fight, were Leon's feints. And I think that's what got Colby early to say, "Ooh, I don't want to eat none of these leg kicks," because I think you saw it from the first feint that Leon threw. Colby's hands just went like that, just jumped straight away, and it pushed him off around the fence. I mean, yeah, an absolute clinic from Leon. John, what was your perspective on it, mate? I mean, we're obviously a bit biased being Brit, but was it really that way?
I would agree with Nathan. It's to me, it was a little of a boring fight after all anticipation of talk, where Colby talking so much shit, and Leon said, "Through the water bottle, so you're dead." But I feel Leon was more matching Colby's energy. He if you saw Leon's last 7-8 fights on his win streak, he didn't finish much people, but he always did enough to win the fight. Because I feel he did the same thing with Colby. He wasn't like Nathan said, he wasn't afraid to get taken down, and Colby attempted 10 takedowns. Only got 2 successful ones. And whenever he saw Colby go for a takedown, Leon, just to bully him, threw it right back. Just to prove a point to Colby.
Mm-hmm.
And who had the most. If you had the most, they had the same amount of takedowns with 2, but Leon attempted 3, which is 66% success rate. And whenever Leon took Colby down, we saw it was more exciting. When Colby was throwing a takedown, it was more like a desperate attempt.
Yeah,
in my view. So
yep.
just to finish it off, I think Leon did enough to win. He didn't. I think we got the headshot too much in our head, and versus the Kamaru fight, they think, oh, Leon will do a spectacular finish. We're hoping he would do so after Colby mentioned his dad, but Leon did exactly what he needed to do, stay in the outside. He lit up his legs. We saw Colby walking out of the octagon with 2 ice packs, and he got a nose.
No, he didn't have a scratch on him.
A little bit of blood in his nose. Oh,
you imagined it.
Right. I was watching a different fight apparently. And then the way Colby stood up too at the end of the 5th round after getting dominated and just lift his hands up and is like, come on, a little bit ridiculous, a little bit delusional. But Colby, like I said, we'll talk about him later. But yeah, Leon up to the game plan, sniping from outside, lit up his legs. Every shot Colby threw, Leon did it right back.
I actually think it probably wasn't so much of the game plan. I think there's a big element of here of Leon being as much of a professional as you could possibly be. I think in the immediate aftermath of everything that went on at the press conference, and again, we'll come on to that, Leon was boiling. It wasn't put on, it wasn't staged, it was whatever else. He really wanted to hurt Colby. But I think what happens after that is you go back, you sit down, and if you've got a good team around you, they say, this is what he wants from you. Don't get involved. Let it go. Let it slide. We've got the game plan. We know what we're going to do. Let's do us. Because there's nothing would be more frustrating for Leon than having that at the press conference and then losing his title to Colby. And I think he turned up on the night and he was all business. Did that lead to a boring fight? Yes, it did. I think probably what we saw from Leon is he was probably less engaging because he didn't want to kind of let those emotions get on top of him. I think there was a massive amount of him just trying to keep everything caged so that the game plan didn't go out the window. And I think he just showed that his level's above Colby because, like I said, he didn't even get out of second gear and he just controlled that fight. And like John was saying just about the takedowns then, Colby was shooting from so far out. You know, he normally uses the hands to kind of get in. He just did not want to be in range with Leon. He just didn't want to be there, and he was shooting from miles away. Leon could see him coming. Even when Colby did get hold of him, you know, he didn't make the takedowns easy, and when he did get him down, Leon got up. So it was a terrible performance from Colby. But I think from Leon's side of it, yeah, okay, Leon's not necessarily got the reputation for being the most exciting fighter on the roster, and definitely not the most exciting champion. But I think there was an element here of just keeping that animal caged, if you like, because if he'd have let that go, I think that would have presented more openings for Colby. Made it a bit of a tougher fight than it was.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when you look at the parallels, it's kind of reminded me of Adesanya's kind of middle performances before the Pereira fights and after the Paulo Costa fight, those two with Vittori and Cannonier, I think, where he never really kind of got out of second gear. He kept himself out of trouble. And I think for me, that's what that performance was with Leon. I do think he was actually quite surprised about Colby's approach, but I think that just speaks to the high level that Leon was operating on. I think, especially once he established the wrestling in the game, where they kind of traded takedowns, and Leon kind of said, "All right, you do that. I'll do it better than you," and he did. And he held him there. I think he took his back as well, and yeah, just dominance all around. And I mean, before we get on to Colby, what would you guys like to see next for Leon? I mean, there's a few narratives popping up there. There's obviously the Shavkat narrative, the Bilal, and also now the Islam narrative that's come out kind of the last 24 hours or so. Where do you guys probably want to see Leon go next?
John?
Well, I think it's good to have options. I think if you want to be fair, you give it to Bilal because he's on the same kind of winning streak that Leon had, and his only no contest and his record was Leon after that eye poke. If you want to be fair, it's him. You want to be more excited? You want to give it to Shavkat? I think Shavkat kind of deserved it. The rankings came out today. He is ranked 3rd now. He jumped Colby. If you want to just blow it up, you give Islam the the title fight to move up, become double champ. But I think what most likely will happen next is Bilal. He did weigh in. He has the same winning streak. There's no more contenders you could throw Bilal to unless it's Shavkat or Colby to have the title shot secure for him. But I think just to get Bilal the way you give Bilal to Leon in London on a pay-per-view sometime in 2024 and just get it over with for the fans, for everybody.
I think it's a crying shame that Ian Gary had to pull out of the fight this weekend against Luque. Because I think if Ian Gary goes out this weekend and knocks out Vicente Luque, I think we're talking about Ian Gary potentially getting a title shot. I really do. Because a bit like John said there, is anyone excited to see Bilal against Leon? No. Is anybody overly excited about Shavkat and Leon? I think we all know that's a good fight. I think we all know that Shavkat's got all the capabilities in the world. And I know I've seen some stuff about injuries and whatever else, but wasn't the most exciting performance from Shavkat. All right, he got the job done, but he got it done in the way that we thought he'd get it done. A real statement would have been to take Wonderboy out on the feet. But, you know, he went to the path of least resistance, held him against the cage a lot. And again, it was all right, he got the job done, but it wasn't the most exciting affair. And obviously they've come out and they've said there's reasons for that. And I just don't think there's any other necessary contenders out there. For me, the short and simple answer is Bilal should get the shot next. I mean, you just talked about Islam there and that kind of blowing up. And I'm very much one that believes that I enjoy the double champ thing, but I enjoy it when it's not a common occurrence and it's for the likes of your Connors. When Izzy had done it and he'd kind of beaten his way through the division, those kind of, let's be honest, Islam has fought Charles Oliveira to win the title.
Yeah. That's
it. Then he's beaten a featherweight twice. That's not, right, okay, I'm going to take a crack at another. It's even like Volk. Look who Volk's had to beat. He had to go through Max Holloway, three times?
Three times.
To go through Max 3 times, as well as Yair Rodriguez and all those other guys as well. And that, to me, warrants the opportunity to step up and face Islam. Islam, with all due respect, maybe the pound-for-pound number one. In my eyes, I think he is. But he doesn't deserve a shot at the welterweight title yet. He has to defend, in my eyes. He absolutely, maybe not the Oliveira thing because he's beaten Charles. I appreciate he doesn't necessarily want that rematch, but he absolutely has to face Justin Gaethje first. Mm-hmm. Has to.
Especially with lightweight, there's such a queue now happening with Gamrot and Gaethje. I feel once you've finished Tsarukyan. Sorry, I didn't mean Gamrot maybe in the future, but Tsarukyan for sure.
Yeah.
Once you get rid of that top 5 and you're like, okay, who else is there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then you can move up. Just like how Edwards and Colby were talking. Oh, if I win this fight, I'll move up. I didn't like that because I think you need to clear out at least the top 5, top 3. Prove there's nobody who would throw you a welterweight we could beat you. Move up and then challenge it.
I think some of the problem with welterweight as well is the fact that Kamaru was so dominant as the champion there that he's beaten a lot of the opposition, but Leon hasn't beaten them yet. Do I want to see Leon Edwards against Gilbert Burns? Fucking right, I do. What a fight. Mm-hmm. Just because Kamaru Usman's gone through Gilbert Burns. But I think if you look at what's right, Bilal has to be next. His last 4 fights have been wins over Wonderboy, Luque, Gilbert Burns, and who was the other one?
I believe Thompson, the very first one.
Yeah, no, I got Thompson, Luque, Burns.
So it's 3,
Sean Brady.
Sean Brady, that's the one.
And Sean Brady. For me, if you beat Sean Brady and those other guys there, you're the number one. There's no arguing it. You can say what you like about the Gilbert Burns injury. I was praying for Gilbert Burns to win that fight.
Yeah, it wasn't everyone.
I was. Everyone was, but he didn't. Those 4 wins for Bilal, that gets him a title shot. If anybody else does that, if we're looking at Sean Brady, if we're looking at Shavkat, if we're looking at Ian Gary, if Ian Gary had gone Stephen Thompson, Vincente Luque, Sean Brady, and Gilbert Burns, you'd be crying out for a world title shot. You'd be wondering why you'd not got it previously. So that's what I mean about Ian Gary this weekend. I think had he won, there'd be a real conversation there because he is a much, much bigger name than Bilal. Yeah, the fact he hasn't, for Leon, with all due respect, Leon's beat the man. He beat Kamaru, and now he beat the guy that's always been the class as the number 2 of the division in Colby. So it is for somebody else to step up. For me, you beat Bilal. In that time, Shavkat takes another fight against whoever it may be. You've got Jack Della Maddalena fighting Gilbert Burns. You've got Ian Gary's now booked against Jeff Neal. So, there's other fights going off in the background there. By the time you get Leon and Bilal out of the way, you've probably got another contender there. And in all likelihood, it's going to be Shavkat.
And MVP's not far away too.
Yeah, well,
I
mean, he's probably he's definitely a couple of fights away. I mean, just because of the list above him, he beats Kevin. If he goes out there and beats Kevin Holland in spectacular fashion, you're going to see at least another 1 or 2 before a title for me. Definitely.
Just comparing him to Chandler. Chandler got a second fight, got a title shot. Not saying that MVP would get it, but you could definitely see if there's you can definitely tell if there's a spectacular performance.
There's definitely a route. There's a route, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. I mean, we're drifting a little bit off, but with MVP, I think at the age he is, at the competition he's faced, I don't think he beats that top 5. To be honest, the way it is, I think Shavkat deals with him. I think Gilbert Burns, that would be a great fight, deals with him. I think you give him the fun fights. We'll come back onto it.
The Kevin Holland fight, perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderboy too.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to come on to later. Yeah, I mean, for me with Leon, I mean, I think I totally agree. I think you gotta give it to Bilal, and I don't think Bilal would have weighed in had he not had assurances from Uncle Dana that, hey, you're next up, just like Colby was, right? If you're gonna throw that dice, you throw that dice. Whether we agree with it or not, I think that's the way you got to go. I don't want to see it because I've already seen it complete shit out of Bilal, so I don't really want to see it again. But
I think Bilal gets the shot next, Taylor, but something you just touched on there, it was kind of niggling at me all week because you see Kevin Holland stepping in at late notice, tried to do it again this weekend. You see it from certain fighters of a certain ilk. And for me, if Bilal was going to weigh in as the backup, why did Bilal not step in to fight Luque?
Exactly.
When Ian Gary pulled out. Or even do what they've done previously where they mix it about and they put Wonderboy in with Luque and they put Shavkat up against Bilal for a number 1 contender. Then you know what I mean? That's the sort of thing that we're kind of used to seeing. We have these little shuffle arounds, and obviously we had, the Nate Diaz one rings the bell where they kind of swapped Xing Liang and D-Rod and Kevin Holland and Kamzat and
changed
Nate Diaz.
And,
just changed that whole thing. But that to me would have been the more logical step. But for Bilal to sort of volunteer to make weight, I get he only wants to make weight for the title shot. But if you've got a pay-per-view and you've got 2 fighters weighed in at the right weight, I don't understand. I know he's beat Luque before, but if you beat him before, surely you get a payday, beat him again, and then you've got the title shot guaranteed.
Yeah,
I don't know. It makes me wonder whether, because Dana's obviously come out, hasn't he, and said he basically doesn't know about whether Bilal's next or not. And it makes me wonder whether they asked the question for Bilal to step in and do something like that, and he turned it down. And now we all know how that works.
Yeah,
they definitely asked him. I feel like there's no way you could have saved a fight from falling off, and he didn't. He, like we talked about Mitchell in the last podcast, doing a favor for the UFC. He didn't. So I don't know if UFC is out giving out favors for free like that afterwards.
Exactly.
It's a big question. I mean, we know Dana loves people that come in and do these things last minute. So it's a big question. I mean, just the final one on the Leon for me, I think they do Bilal next, reluctantly. The only way I could see Islam happening is UFC 300, and they can't put something mega together, and they just say, "Hey, we've got this opportunity, let's do it." But I totally agree. Like Nathan, you took the words out of my mouth with Justin Gaethje. He's the kind of the defining factor. And I want to see Leon go through a couple of these guys. These matchups are so exciting at welterweight. Once he gets Bilal out of the way, you got Shavkat, Ian Gary, Sean Brady. These guys get another win each. Shavkat, you could argue, but these guys get another win each, and your quid's in, and all of a sudden he's doing the next generation now, right? Because now Usman and Colby are on their bike. Gilbert Burns, we'll
Mhm.
see how that one plays out with Jack Della, and you're looking at the next generation really of welterweights. So it's a really
I mean,
interesting thing. Do you want to go on?
we've just seen this. Like I said, the thing I was saying about welterweight earlier with Kamaru beating everybody, but Leon hasn't. It's very similar with the lightweights. You know, Charles has beaten Gaethje, he's beaten Poirier, he's beaten these other guys, Chandler, but Islam hasn't.
No.
Islam hasn't fought any of them. So, you know, other than Charles. So I think it's one of them. Like I said, styles make fights. Just because Charles Oliveira had the key to beating certain fighters, you know, Justin Gaethje might run through Islam. I'm not sure that is going to happen, but he's a very different style of fighter than what he's faced so far. You know, he's just a bigger version of Volkanovski in that first fight, in essence. So you just don't know. But I think we need to see that. But that's obviously Leon and what happens next with him and Islam and blah, blah, blah. But I think there's a big talking point here, and I think it's time to jump into Colby bashing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll stick with welterweight maybe for this first part, and then we'll jump into the rest of the fights because there's a couple of other narratives. But let's jump into Colby drop the bag Covington. I mean, who's not happy that he lost, right? I mean, who's looking at that going, oh man, I'm gutted he lost. Absolutely through the moon, over the moon,
Donald
everything
Trump.
on the moon.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. I mean, he walked out halfway through his speech. I don't know if you guys saw the footage, but he was on his bike as soon as Colby got on the mic. I mean, he bloody well deserved it, the absolute idiot.
Yeah.
I think that was a secret service trying to get him out of there as fast as possible.
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I mean, the thing about Colby was, right, he's always relying off of two things. One, his mouth, and two, his fighting ability. If you look at the two Usman fights, the only reason he got that second rematch is because it was a really close fight. And it took Usman breaking his jaw to get him out of there. And he talked his way back into it. This one with Leon, the only reason you're buying in is because you know those two factors, his wrestling and his mouth. Now, that is now gone. That aura around him is gone. As far as I'm concerned, I never need to see him fight in the UFC again. What's he got to do? He's not going to go up. He's not going to go down. He wants to pick on bloody Wonderboy in a post-fight press conference, for God's sake. Someone asked him about Shavkat. Yeah, Wonderboy. Come on, man. Wonderboy's 40 years old. Stylistically, he's a great matchup for you. I would hope he'd freak the absolute piss out of you anyway. But who knows at 41 years old by the time they probably fight. Go and fight a real contenders, man. If you want to get back to the belt and be one of the greatest welterweights of all time, you keep saying, fight Shavkat. Put your money where your mouth is. I think Shavkat absolutely runs ragged, and I want to see that fight to see him get absolutely ran through. But yeah, I couldn't have more not hatred. Hatred is a very strong word, and I don't hate any human being, but I couldn't have any more animosity towards Colby Covington. And I know he would put me through a brick wall, and that's no problem. But even still, I can hate on him and have an opinion. So
yeah, he's still a dickhead.
He's still an absolute dickhead. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to let you two
John,
wild about him.
John, you go, because once I start, I won't stop.
Won't finish. Okay. I just want to give credit first where it's due, and I want to give credit to Leon's corner, his coaches. I'm assuming they did a lot of work with him to calm him down and stick to the game plan. What was Colby's game plan? No clue. I didn't see the Colby from Kamaru's fight, versus the two Kamaru fights, the what's his name, Tyron Woodley fight. Just boring fight from Colby. No approach, no fight, no desire from him. I feel what we used to seeing him is volume of weak punches, and then get you to the cage and try to take you down. I saw none of that stuff. Ring rust could have been a factor because he hasn't fought in 600 days. But he just didn't have any answers. Yeah. He didn't have any answers.
Not having the ring rust thing. I'm not having it. We just saw Francis Ngannou come after about 2.5 years out and beat the living shit out of Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight champion of the world. Ring rust isn't real. It's bollocks.
True. Colby was just practicing his mouth. That's it.
Yeah.
It seemed like if you truly were training and actually was preparing for a title fight for a third time in 4 fights, I feel like he'd come out way better, especially giving trouble to Kamaru. But Colby, just a weak performance from him. Didn't deserve a title shot, and then proved in the fight he didn't deserve it. He just a poor performance. Really nothing from him. I got nothing new out of him. He seemed old, slow, like he didn't belong in the top 5 of the welterweight division.
Mm-hmm. You're not just saying this because of the lawsuit, John, are you, with the restaurant incident?
No. I did
Cool,
trim a
hey.
little bit, so you wouldn't bash me on that.
No, look, we had a conversation before this event, didn't we? Where we talked about how Colby was the number 2 ranked guy in the welterweight division and had been for a period of time behind Kamaru Usman, and that was kind of the narrative. And we discussed it last week where we said, based on what? Based on what? Who was he beaten? Who was he beaten who's a prime fighter? And the reality is, he's not been in with a prime striker. He fought an older version of Robbie Lawler, who just wasn't the same guy. He fought Damian Maia. He fought...
known for his striking.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. He fought
Masvidal.
Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, Woodley.
Okay, Masvidal. But Masvidal, again, we're talking about a Masvidal that's at the end of his career and just come off the back of a couple of hidings from Kamaru Usman.
Right.
He hasn't fought anybody. There's no Sean Brady on there. There's no Gilbert Burns. There's no Shavkat, no Ian Gary, no Wonder Boys, no nothing. Like, hasn't wanted anything to do with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson until he hits 40 and is on the decline. And Colby's shown us nothing to prove that he is the number 2 guy. We called out whether he deserved the shot or not, and I'll tell you what his game plan was, John. It was the same as it always is. To go in there, to wrestle, to do whatever else. And when he got in there against a prime elite striker, his arse fell out. Every time he stepped into range against Leon Edwards, Leon clipped him. Every single time Colby threw a shot, Leon clipped him. And if you were guessing going into this event what Leon Edwards does to win this fight, you would say counter. Every time he comes in, counter. He's going to try and put the pressure on. He's going to come for you. We catch him on the way in. And that's exactly what Leon did. Until after the second or third attempt when Colby just went, fuck that. I can't get near him. He couldn't get near Leon. He was desperate, like you said. He started shooting from miles out. He couldn't judge the stance. Leon was southpaw, then he was orthodox. Colby just didn't know where he was going, where he was coming from. He was just circling that octagon at Leon's pace. You know, they talk about octagon control, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it better than Leon Edwards did on Saturday night. The fight was dictated wherever he wanted it to. He got the takedowns that he wanted on Colby. He didn't fear the takedowns from Colby. He was completely relaxed on his back. I've seen some stupid stuff about, and the commentary team... I'm not a big Rogan and DC fan, I'm going to be completely honest, and nothing's really changed after Saturday night, put it that way. But they're talking about how it doesn't look good for Leon finishing the fight on his back.
Yeah,
he's won every minute of every round of this fight, and he's literally laid on his back under no threat whatsoever, and the only way that he loses this fight now is by trying to stand up and getting caught in something stupid. He just stayed on his back. He knew he was in no threat, and he thought, I might as well wait for the belt to go. This fight is won anyway. It was won 2 rounds ago. So that was first on the commentary.
He took more risk on the ground than on his back than Colby did.
Yeah.
The only
he was trying to...
that was it.
Yeah, I mean, he tried earlier. He tried to lock in that armbar, and it only just slipped. Yeah. He had the guillotine locked in as well, and that just slipped. And if he'd have finished Colby like that, everyone would have been going absolutely nuts. But he wasn't going to seek for that in the last 30 seconds of the fight. And people can say, yeah, well, excite. No bollocks. He's a champion of the world. He's won every minute of every round. He doesn't need to risk it now. Do you know what I mean? That would have just been stupid. And you can make reference to that in the Pantoja Royval fight. Same thing. I've got comments on that, but we'll move on to that later. But for Colby, we've seen something with Strickland and Dricus, and we've seen, was it Manel Cap and a couple of others, using derogatory terms that shouldn't be really thrown about loosely, and the sort of shit that Colby was saying at Media Day, not just about Leon and his dad, but, there was a stuff with Ian Gary's wife and whatever else as well, and it's just, it's too much. It's too far. Yeah, I mean, we look at Bryce Mitchell and Josh Emmett, and you look at them on social media over the last 24 hours. That's what we love about this sport. That's what the real fans enjoy. Right. One guy practically fucking killed the other guy in the octagon on Saturday night. One's taken to social media to say thanks for not killing me. And the other one said, "You're welcome. It's a pleasure doing. The sport needs more people like you."
Yeah,
that's the game that we love. Go in there, beat the hell out of each other, walk out, and are best mates. The same thing could be said about Aldana and Rosa. Carol Rosa earlier on. There's a picture of the two of them in the hospital, absolutely smashed to bits, having a smile, and that's what we'd love to see. We don't need this shit. Like, if Colby had done that in Birmingham and he got shot or stabbed,
he probably wouldn't.
He genuinely would have. He genuinely would have, because it's just not. It's not the way you do things. It's the sort of thing like Masvidal going up to him in the street, because Masvidal is that guy. Colby plays that guy, but he's already shown us he's not.
No, I remember the boomerang incident with Doom, right?
Yeah, he was desperately trying. Yeah, he was desperately trying to get under Leon's skin, and Leon was laughing everything off. He wasn't even slightly deterred by anything that Colby had said, and that was a moment of desperation at the press conference to go like that. The Ian Gary thing was premeditated. I don't think he planned this thing with Leon's dad. I think he just, in the moment, he was feeling the heat because things weren't going his way, and that's what he went to. And it just shows, I said before, Colby's playing a game, Colby's got us talking about him, Colby's this, Colby's that. But Colby's a scumbag. I've completely changed my opinion after this weekend. He's just a dick.
Yeah.
There's a line and you don't cross it, and he crossed it. And if you're playing a character, you don't go there. You know what I mean? If you're just that way inclined that you're just that much of an asshole that you can go and say something like that to somebody. Like, none of us would have begrudged Leon Edwards jumping straight through John Anik and absolutely smashing him to bits there and then. Nobody could have held that against him. So that's just, I don't like seeing it. All right, we're seeing DC and John Jones, and in boxing we've seen Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis and scraps up on the stage and stuff. Like, you kind of expect that. You expect heated moments from these guys, but there's just some lines you don't cross. And Colby, for me, just showed he's an absolute scumbag. I'm like you. He's done nothing in the octagon to prove that he's an elite guy up there. I'm not convinced he beats Sean Brady. I'm not convinced he beats Vicente Luque. He doesn't beat Ian Gary. He doesn't beat Gilbert Burns. He doesn't beat Shavkat Rakhmanov. Realistically, we're looking at Colby. He'd be lucky if he's a top 10 guy. Genuinely.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
But even still now,
I don't even know he's top
take
10.
it full circle. Like, he doesn't have the skills anymore, because you tune in for those two things. You watch him to lose, and you watch him to see if he's going to put his money where his mouth is. And at the moment, the two Kamaru fights, now how much he's dropped off from this performance just shows he doesn't have the skills anymore. And you're talking about the top 10, and that'll take us quite nicely into the other kind of welterweight picture before we jump into the rest of the card. There was another welterweight fight on the night. We obviously kind of mentioned it in passing a little bit, and it was Shavkat Rakhmanov going full anaconda on poor Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, for me, I was like, Nathan, you kind of expressed your thoughts earlier, not being overly impressed. I was pretty impressed with this performance, actually. I thought the way that he broke Stephen Thompson in that second round, he just slowly, it was literally like watching a snake squeeze the life out of something. You knew what was going to happen. You didn't want to see it. It was really making you kind of cringe, and then it happened. I was super impressed by Shavkat's performance, to be honest. And then you hear about the injury and everything. I mean, you see people control Wonderboy, but for me, the way he just turned it, and just dominated him really on the ground there, it's just, it's nasty. I think it was a statement. It's not obviously as exciting, but I think it was a huge statement.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, the injury makes all the sense in the world. It's just that when I said I was disappointed, it wasn't that I was disappointed at the fact that he submitted Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in 2 rounds. That there's no being disappointed in that. That's a cracking performance. It was more just the fact that I know how good he is. I know what he's capable of. And I actually think had he wanted to, he could have played quite a lot of this fight out on the feet, and not necessarily beaten Wonderboy at his game, but proven that he was equally as good on the feet. Because I genuinely think he is. I think he's got the power to hurt people too. I think he's so well-rounded and so good. The only disappointment was that I don't think we necessarily got to see it on the biggest stage he's kind of had to date. That was kind of where the disappointment lied.
Yeah, John, what did you think?
He still got it done. He still got it done though, so that's the impressive part. And he keeps his finishing record intact. He's now he's up to 10, like we spoke the last time. Now he has 10 submissions and 8 knockouts.
Yeah,
Have
it's
you ever
ridiculous.
seen somebody who went 18-0 and has all finishes? I can't remember the last time.
No, it's pretty
Nobody-
impressive.
Nobody comes to mind. Yeah, he didn't compete Wonderboy on defeat, but we all knew he wasn't going to do that. Maybe he was going to do a little bit of that and then bring him to defeat. Bring him to the ground. And that the injury, that's why he didn't see him do so many kicks.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. But imagine if he didn't injure his foot. We might have seen a way different fight, and we've been more impressed. I'm still impressed. Maybe not to your level, Nathan, though. But I'm still very impressed by Shavkat. I think he got it done when he needs to be done. Moved up in the rankings. You cannot argue against him not having a title shot. Cannot argue against him being in top 10 in the welterweight division. And with this new breed of fighters we have in the welterweight division, Shavkat, Del Mandelina, Gary, it's an exciting times. If you're a champion, you're gonna have this real badass fighters right behind you trying to take that title.
Is it Gilbert and Bilal who are ahead of him at 2 and 3, at 2 and 1?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Must be right.
Oh, Kamaru, probably Kamaru is still number 2.
it's Kamaru, Bilal, then
And now
Gilbert
Shavkat.
Burns.
Well, Shavkat's number 3 now.
Yeah, sorry, it was.
Yeah. I think no, Gilbert's number 4. And they're throwing Dylan Mandelina on versus against him to get into the top 5 as well. But yeah, overall, I'm impressed with Shavkat. Really good performance. Nobody submitted Wonderboy in his career. Shavkat did it. He did it the same way he did it against Neil Magny in the last final seconds of the second round. So yeah.
Yeah, what else really jumped out at me was what nobody's really done to Wonderboy is cut his movement off like that. I mean, you saw Bilal and I forget the other
Gilbert.
one. Maybe it was Sean Brady or Gilbert, who just took him down and wrestled him out of being able to move. But what Shavkat did was actually really intelligently cut the cage off before he engaged in the grappling, which you really don't see too much with Wonderboy. I mean, overall, I was just super impressed. Where'd you go with Shavkat next? I mean, we've obviously just kind of talked about the rankings there. What do you do with him next? Do you hang him out until maybe he's got an injury to recover from? Right, we talked about that injury, but do you hang him out until that title shot is available? You're talking back end of next year, right?
I think that's the problem, isn't it? Had he not been injured, I think he's, you're looking at him getting back in there against one of the other top competitors. I think the fact that he's obviously got this injury and he's going to be out for a period now, just depends how long he's out for. He's going to have to take some time out. He's going to have to recover, and I think we'll just have to play it as it comes. But I think he's probably only one more away. I think his next fight, even after an injury, will likely be an eliminator for the title.
But who though? That's the question, right? Who's there? Unless Kamaru comes back down, I don't see who else there is. Don't put bloody Colby in there with him unless you just want a demolition. Colby don't deserve that. Just get him off the.
Why not?
The rankings.
Let him.
Why?
Let him demolish Colby.
Because he's dog. And what does it really do for Shavkat? I mean, yeah, okay, he beats Colby, but he beats a washed up Colby Covington, gets another fight in. This is the problem, right? When we were talking about the Bilal Leon equation earlier. Shavkat is kind of the problem in there, right? Because of his performance and what he's looking like. There is a lot of dependence on the injury, but I think I don't know what do you get out of it? What do you get out of it? And then it's just a bit weird for me. I don't know what you do with Shavkat.
I don't know what you do with him right now, but the first thing you have to do is let him heal from his injury. We don't know how long it's going to take, and it kind of works out that this welterweight round robin was all kind of the same night. So he has time until Leon's next fight. Gary's fighting in 2 months. Bilal probably wasn't also weighed in, so he's gonna have time to recover. Yeah. So first thing to do is definitely let him recover. If you need surgery, get surgery, rest. But you'll definitely probably throw him in the top 5. If Leon is injured and can't fight in March or whatnot, or April, they probably will do a interim belt with him and Bilal.
Yeah, I think with Leon, if you're going to do it right, if you're not going to do a UFC 300 mega fight, the only one that makes sense to make as much money as you can is Bilal in the UK. That's the only, you can't do Leon Bilal in the States, in my opinion. It's just not gonna generate the revenue you'd want it to. It's not a big fight over there, right? Because no one's interested in Bilal. We don't know how much of a draw Leon is really without Kamaru or Colby. So better to do that in the UK. I mean, could you look at a world where it would be Shavkat, Ian Gary for an interim title, for example?
I think
Maybe.
Actually,
Not an interim, sorry, a number one
title
contender.
leader. Yeah.
I don't think that we get an interim title for the welterweights. I also don't think that we see Leon Edwards fight at UFC 300.
Yeah,
I don't think that happens. I think you'll see Leon headline maybe another card or be the co-main in something else, but I don't think you see that the way we're expecting necessarily. But for me, top competitors will pop their heads up. Like I said, we've got Ian Gary going in against Jeff Neal. You've got Jack Della Maddalena. If he beats Gilbert Burns, he jumps right up. And everyone's already so high on Jack, just beat Kevin Holland, beats Gilbert Burns. He's right there. Sean Brady's just done an absolute demolition job on Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah.
You've got Shavkat's in there, obviously, just beat Wonderboy. There's so many options, and somebody will poke their head above the rest of the pack. I do think it'll be Leon and Bilal next, but I think as for what do you do with him next, I think by the time Shavkat's recovered from his injury, there will be another fight that's taken place, and there will be another option for him, definitely.
Yeah, when it goes to a number one contender. I mean, let's jump to Thompson. I kind of threw my hat in earlier, as if to say, do the MVP Holland fight, and then you do MVP Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, that's it. That's all I have to say. It sells itself. It sells itself for me. I think that's what you do with Wonderboy.
I mean, I think that's not a problem for someone like MVP who's just come into the organisation. We don't really know how good he is. He's shown his level at a certain level, but this is the UFC. We've seen it a number of times. It's a little different when they come over here, and he is kind of striker heavy. There's holes in his game which the people like Gilbert Burns, for example, would be able to expose.
Yeah.
As silly as it sounds, even somebody like Bilal would probably just wrestle fuck him. I mean, it's there is that kind of thing. We've seen him do it with others. So I'm not surprised Colby called out a 40-year-old Stephen Thompson as he would be coming off the back of a loss, because let's face it, look at all these last opponents. They tick the box. He's basically Jake Paul of the MMA. So, he doesn't fight them unless they're old past it and they've lost the last few fights. So that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, that was just me getting a quick Colby digging before we moved on again. But yeah,
every time now.
Yeah, but I think for Wonderboy, I think it's a good one on there. I think even making Ian Gary and Wonderboy off the back of this one would have still been a decent fight to make, because again, we say styles make fights. Ian Gary's more likely to stand and strike with Wonderboy, so it makes for more of an intriguing matchup. Whereas we kind of knew what Shavkat was going to do. So, I think for him, if MVP's coming in, I think let's just take a step back for a moment, because he's got to get through Kevin Holland first.
Yeah.
And in all seriousness, MVP is great, but he's as good a striker as Kevin Holland, probably a better striker than Kevin Holland in regards to the actual technique itself, but he doesn't have the submissions that Kevin Holland can throw up.
No,
there are levels to this game, and we can talk about what's next for MVP. But he's got a big fight on first.
Yeah,
and
be a really fun fight.
Holland did bring Jack Della Maddalena to a split decision. So and Jack Della Maddalena has one of the
another crap fight.
Really good striking. And sure. For Wonderboy, I think UC still likes him. He still has a lot of fans. Keep him in UFC, but he's clearly not going to be in the top 5.
Yeah.
Or fight for another title contention. So just give him fun fights. Holland again, maybe. MVP.
Completely agree.
Gary, like you said, just strikers. Someone who you want to see Wonderboy do his karate stance and not get worried about taking it down. So I
don't think anybody was happy about this fight for Stephen Thompson, were they? Let's be honest.
I think it was a nice last roll of the dice for him. Last roll of the dice. A good name building for Shavkat. We all kind of knew what was going to happen. Hearts and heads kind of match up, and yeah, we kind of saw it there. So co-main event. I mean, we
Yeah.
pretty much called it, I think, in the preview show. Alexandre Pantoja just showing he's levels above, isn't he, really?
Definitely better than Royval. Sorry, Nathan.
No, go on, give your take. I have a slightly different one on it to a certain extent.
So, again, not the most exciting fight on the card. Pantoja did what he needed to do. He definitely seemed a step above Royval, just like he did in his last fight. Although he didn't get to the finish, it did seem Royval had more motivation and wanted to go to 5 rounds. And credit to him, he did what Colby couldn't do. At round 5, came out and just threw the kitchen sink at Pantoja.
Yep.
You know, Pantoja just ate all the shots, and I don't know how he stayed standing. Yeah. We talked about this last time. It's just there's a tier 1 flyweights and tier 2 flyweights with Royval. Sorry, not Royval. Pantoja, Moreno, Figgy, and then there's tier 2 where your Royval is Kai Kara France, Manel Kopp. If Manel Kopp can take the next step, so just a solid win. It's the first time we saw the flyweight title get defended in 4 years, I believe. Because Figgy lost to Moreno lost to Figgy lost to Moreno lost it to Pantoja. So it was good to see a defense and something stable for once. You know what I mean? Yeah. Pantoja did everything he could. He tried to submit him. He tried to strike him. He tried to wrestle him. He won on every single step.
Yeah, see, that's kind of where I differ. I don't think Pantoja did everything he could to win this fight as comfortably as maybe he could have. I was incredibly disappointed with Pantoja. You made a good point there, John, which is one I wanted to bring up, is that Brandon Royval may well have been lacking in the level of skill in comparison to Pantoja, but he did what Colby didn't do. He tried and he tried and he tried and he tried, and it was frustrating for him because he was just, every time he looked like he got a little bit of success, Pantoja would time a takedown really well and then lay on top of him. And that's kind of where I was disappointed with Pantoja. For someone that's got a submission win over Royval previously, I thought his gas tank was shot to bits. I mean, he pulled through. But I'll be completely honest, I came out of that fight thinking 2 things. Number 1, Pantoja is a level above Brandon Royval. And number 2, he better hope to God he doesn't have to face Brandon Moreno again next. Because honestly, had Pantoja performed like that against Moreno would have run through him.
Yeah,
I don't know whether he was trying to get Royval out of there and he was loaded, because he was loading up, the kicks and everything he was throwing in the first round in particular were nasty. That you could hear the impact of them. They was throwing serious kicks, and he was throwing the highlights, and then out of nowhere it was like, right, I'm going to turn this into a bit of a Corey Sandhagen over Rob Font kind of thing. Whenever you're having a bit of success, I'm going to time the takedown and I'm going to kind of lay on top of you a little bit. And I just don't think he had the energy. But we could talk about Paddy the same way a little bit later on. There's an element of do what you've got to do to win. And I think he realised the gas tank was blown. He timed the takedowns beautifully. I can't take that away from him. And he was dominant from the ground against Royval. I think it was just, had he come up against someone like a Brandon Moreno, I think he would have really struggled on that night. To me, Pantoja looked off. Yeah. I don't know if he had an injury. I don't know if he'd had an injury through camp and maybe couldn't train to his fullest, but he just looked off to me. Despite, like we said earlier on, still getting the job done fairly comfortably.
But I would give the credit to Royval to get Pantoja gassed out, because like Taylor, you do jiu-jitsu. It's hard to win those positions, especially with Pantoja he was always trying to go for that head and arm choke, for that head and arm triangle. Yeah. So he did try to continue to move on positions, but Royval is also a black belt, and he's not stupid. He knows what Pantoja was trying to do, even though he got submitted in the first fight. But Pantoja kept trying to finish the fight, and then that did gas him out. It could have been his first title defense. He was feeling all the nerves. He wasn't a challenger against like Moreno, so he knew he had to let the challenger come to him instead of going for the champion. So still give a little bit of credit to Royval. He did what he showed up round 5. He didn't let himself get finished just as easily.
Yeah.
I just thought it was positioning winning, and Pantoja tried to do it. Royval just wasn't gonna be submitted that night.
No, I like you said, I thought Pantoja was dominant. I thought he won comfortably. I thought he looked the better man in all the positions. I was just a little bit disappointed he didn't do more. And it was more the gas tank thing for me, because I thought coming towards the end of the second round, I thought he's in serious trouble here because he looked absolutely bollocksed. You know, he looked like he got practically nothing left. But again, got to give credit in those instances to him, because to keep going the way he did, and like you said, John, he did keep looking for the submissions when he had half an opportunity for it. It was just the gas tank maybe wasn't there, and the explosiveness that you would normally see from him. He just looked a bit off to me.
Yeah, I think
it was so easy. It was so easy to take Royval down as well. Just want to mention that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, right? I think there was a high level of fight intelligence there from Pantoja. I mean, I totally agree with what you were saying. That third round, the visuals were not good from Pantoja. You can kind of see it in his body shape, right? I think there's a very different body shape between him and Royval. You know, Pantoja's pretty well defined and pretty well built. So his muscles are using up a lot of energy, and he did not look good in that third round. And I think it was just a really good example of fight intelligence from Pantoja, and it just shows. I definitely think there's levels to it. It'd be interesting to see over the next year if a little British Dagestani fella by the name of Mo Mokaev can break into that top level. Looking at that fight, I would look at it and say Pantoja's going to have the strength advantage, right? He's going to have the pure man strength advantage because of how young Mokaev is. But it would have been interesting because he's so good on the ground. I mean, brings us nicely when we talk about fight intelligence to something we haven't really seen from our guy Paddy the Baddy. I mean, I think that third round, I think the way he navigated that third round was incredibly intelligent against Tony Ferguson, who, you know, you heard my opinions in the preview show. I really did not give him a shot, and I think it was proved on the night, really. I mean, Nathan, we'll go to you first, mate. What did you think of Paddy's performance? His first time back in a year after the ankle surgery, had the cornrows in. Kind of looks weird when a white guy's got cornrows, but what are you going to do?
I think Paddy's having a bit of an identity crisis, mate, if I'm honest. And it's not just the haircut. He's seemed off all week to me. You know, Paddy's normally quite bouncy, and I know he's had a lot of shit going off in his personal life, and he's got the kids on the way and everything else, and he just looked off. He didn't look himself. He wasn't having the usual banter. When he was doing it, it looked kind of forced. He just seemed a little bit serious. And, you know, I was thinking going into that, look, he's just pissed off because he's taken a lot of heat. He's had a lot of shit since the Jared Gordon thing. Then he's had the injury to come back, and I think he's just raring to go. He seems super focused, super locked in. Like, we've seen the bounce house, haven't we, so many times to the octagon, and he's dancing around and throwing the arms about, and he was kind of doing it, but he wasn't anywhere near as energetic as... Yeah. No, he just didn't seem into that. It was like he was wanting to put a show on for the fans, but also he was just focused on his performance. He had a very serious nature about him, and I thought when the bell went and the two started, I actually thought Tony looked all right, with all due respect. Yeah. You know, I've talked a lot of shit about him, but I thought Tony looked okay. And I thought he did well to survive, because I thought Paddy was going to blow him away the way that it was going. But what I would say, mate, is just like standing in that southpaw stance and kind of flicking out those kicks, those sort of teeps to the knees and stuff like that from southpaw. He keeps doing that, mate. He's going to get knocked out. Somebody's going to hurt him. I thought he looked composed insofar as he looked like he was switched on, and he looked like he was trying to do everything right, and he looked like he wasn't being reckless. But he was so open still. So open. And I genuinely think you put him in with a Bobby Green, a Drew Dober, a Matt Favola. I think any of them take him out. Any of them. And Paddy's so offensively, he's so dangerous, because he has got heavy hands and he has got fast hands, and the jiu-jitsu is not even worth getting started about, because he's crazy exciting. You know, he's very Charles Oliveira-esque, and a lot of people won't like that because they just don't like Paddy, but he is. He's quick and he throws them up from nowhere. But he just looked so open, and I actually wasn't impressed. I thought I was impressed in the fact that, like we just talked about with Pantoja there, he managed it. He realised he was blowing, and he realised that he had an advantage on the ground against Tony, so he took him there and he laid and prayed for the rest of the round almost. And then he went into the third and did exactly the same thing, because Tony's engine was there. He's just not that guy. Tony's not that guy anymore. He's not quick enough. He's not sharp enough. He talks a good game, Tony, but he doesn't look to me like he wants it enough. Like he started that way, but when his back's on the canvas and he was throwing the elbows and he was doing whatever, but then Paddy's laying on top of him. And I think there's an element of Tony now where he never used to care if he was losing the fight because he knew he could come back and win it. Now, Tony, look, when he's on the ground, he's fighting, but it's almost like in his head he thinks, I'm losing this round. And losing becomes a habit. You hear it all the time. And that's where Tony's at. And I genuinely don't see... I mean, I saw him come out and release a statement saying, I'm not done, motherfuckers, and this and all the rest of it. Like, Tony needs to go. And if, the UFC have got anything about him, with all due respect, Dana should make the call and cut him. And I don't...
It's a BJ Penn situation at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's got to save him from himself because, he was in there with Paddy. He very nearly got knocked out in the first round when he landed that knee and Paddy went down. It was a miracle he kind of survived that there. Like I said, I think you stick him in with... It's like he's just lost to Paddy, who's unranked. Tony's unranked. Paddy's just had a, controversial win and leave it at that against Jared Gordon, right? Who do you put Tony in with? Because he's going down again. Like, do we want to see the point where Tony Ferguson's fighting on the prelims as the second or third fight of the night because he's completely gone, shot to bits, but he's got his contract still remaining? He needs to go. Yeah. He needs to go, and it's sad to see that he's got to this stage, but he genuinely, we said it in the preview, he took that beating from Justin Gaethje and he just never came back from it.
Yeah, totally right. John, what are your thoughts, mate?
I agree with Nathan. Paddy, speaking of gassed out for Pantoja, Paddy did gas out really quickly, and I never seen that from him. I don't know how he was in Cage Warriors. You guys probably know more about that. But he, like Nathan said, Tony looked semi-decent. Like he was catching Paddy in the first round until he got knocked down.
Yep.
And then Paddy just laid on him, and then he tried... I don't know what he tried. There's a few ground and pounds. There's a few kind of submission attempts. But like again, Tony's not stupid. He knows what kind of submissions you get. But if Bobby Green could submit Tony and Paddy's jiu-jitsu was that much superior, how come he couldn't do the same to Tony? It could have been because of the gassed out part of it. Maybe David Goggins' training did do wonders on Tony, and then he actually made Paddy gassed out because of that. So yeah, I'm not like I said, I'm not impressed with Paddy. He hasn't done anything to prove that he could fight anybody in the top 15, like you mentioned with Frolova, Dober, Bobby Green. People outside, I think he's gonna get wrecked by anybody, even like Dan Hooker. He can't stand with them.
No.
The only thing that
Sorry, John, I was just going to jump on what you were saying there, but this is the exact same thing, isn't it? It's like Paddy's beat Tony Ferguson now. He's got to be ranked just outside the top 15, if you like. So now you're looking at Drew Dober, Matt Favola, Jalen Turner, Bobby Green. They'll all wreck him.
Yeah. Even with Benoit Saint Denis, I wouldn't throw him in there. Paddy would get annihilated. The only thing that looked good on Paddy was the cornwalls, I would say. Yeah, the hair. They mentioned that the hair when he gets hit, it looks like the hair moves a lot, so it looks like he got more damage than he does. So, and I wasn't too big of a fan of the hair, so at least during the fight, keep it like that. Paddy gets hit a lot. He got gassed out. And I don't even know when we're gonna see him next because he's gonna have twins born sometime in April around UC 300. Then you want to stay.
Looks like he got the injury as well, hasn't he?
Right,
the foot was all blown up.
Yeah, and you want to stay with the kids after? Like, is he going to fight only once in 2024? And who would you give him?
I don't think he can afford to. I think he's got to be active. I think he really needs to get some momentum going. I think the reason Paddy's always had a little bit of a gas tank thing. Like, as I mentioned, the Cage Warriors stuff, we've seen it, but also not to that extent where he just kind of let it all go in the first and then he was just dead. Just completely gone. Like, we've not really seen that too much from him, and I think the fact that he has been out, he's had the injury, but I think probably just the mental side of it. I think he's been too focused and too dialed in almost to kind of really enjoy it, and I think there was probably a lot of nervous energy, which, as we know, just completely saps.
And
the gas tank.
if Tony gets you gassed out like that, how would the other people make you do that? You think
Yeah.
fighting for Lova, Drew Dober would not make you gassed out? It could be a little bit of the injury you fought a year ago, but like you're gonna fight. Paddy has to make a push. He said he's not gonna get fat anymore between training camps. I think that's a good call for once.
Yeah. Well,
But-
he didn't do it, did he? This time round. To be fair to him, he stayed in pretty decent shape the whole time.
Yeah, but right after Gordon, he did get a little bit fat. But that could have been because of the surgery. But if he stays in shape, heals that injury really quickly, trains like there's no tomorrow. Get a big fight in the UK. I think that's what he needs as well. Get a fight in the UK under his crowd, people saying his name.
Yeah, get his confidence back. Yeah, get that.
Do you know what I'd actually like to see? I'd like to see him run it back with Jared Gordon.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that as well, Nathan. Actually, I think that's a good one
Just
to
because
do.
I think he needs to step back rather than step forward. I think he needs to just realise that there's some work to be done there and just do that. And I think, if he can put that Jared Gordon one to bed as well, then just for the mental demons, if you like, it puts that behind him. Yeah, and he can kind of move on. I think that's the way to go. And I'm sure Jared Gordon would sign up in a heartbeat.
I guess we would disagree, boys, because I say keep it behind you, move on. I was thinking more like a Chase Hooper versus Paddy.
The only problem with that, John, for me is with all due respect to Chase Hooper, if you drop to that level and you get beat, then Paddy's stock just goes through the floor, doesn't it?
But if Paddy is,
what I mean?
Everyone thinks,
because
it'd be a fun match. It'd be a fun match, that one. But yeah, I think you've got to. I like the Jared Gordon shout, Nathan. I think that's the way to go. I think it seems like that would be a good redemption arc for Paddy. It seems like it's still kind of plaguing in his mind. You could hear it in some of his press conferences, comments, and you could hear it in other things as well. So I think it's still kicking around in there. I think you get him on that Leon Thomas Pinal Magic card in Manchester towards the end of July, probably around about perfect timing. I mean, one person who's probably doesn't even remember Saturday night is poor old Bryce Mitchell.
Scary. Doesn't remember.
Scary knockout, that one, wasn't it? I mean, you often see you sometimes do see those. I mean, what was the other classic one with Aljamain Sterling, where he walked onto Sean O'Malley's punch, and Bryce Mitchell did the same thing, right? Walked straight into the punch, and oh my god, the scenes after it were horrible. Kudos completely to Josh Emmett. He just looked like a different beast in there, didn't he? Really.
You're muted, Nathan.
Nathan. He's muted himself. There we go.
Technical genius. Yeah, it's. I was a bit mad with myself because, as you know, I do these Octagon Oracle picks, and we talked about it in the preview, and I kind of leant towards Bryce, but sometimes I get caught up in the moment, like a lot of us do, especially when we bet or we do whatever else. You see this like potential for somebody, but there was always a niggling doubt in this one here that I actually thought Bryce would get the job done. I'm not backtracking from that, but there was always a niggling doubt that I said it. He struggled on the feet and he looked a little bit uncomfortable against Dan Ige. We said that in the preview. Yeah. And Josh Emmett's just a different beast, man. I didn't think coming back from the Ilia Taporia thing that he would be the same. I said that again in the preview. I thought a beating like that, you just don't come back the same. And fuck me, he proved me wrong because he absolutely starched Bryce Mitchell in the most terrifying of ways. I mean, the noise, the way that Bryce just went down. I mean, we'll touch on it as well, but like Cody Garbrandt for me was sitting quite pretty, probably looking at knockout of the night. And then Josh Emmett does that, and Cody must have been sat in the back going, for fuck's sake. Because it was just destruction of the highest level. And, both guys, you got to take your hat off to Bryce Mitchell as well. Stepping in against somebody as dangerous as Josh Emmett. It was an opportunity to fire up the rankings, and we said he's not going to lose a lot of stock. And I don't think he does. But I think we maybe have seen, look, anybody can get clipped. And if it's Josh Emmett, there's only one way that's going. But maybe there is a ceiling to where Bryce Mitchell can actually get to. He's a phenomenal talent, but I just think he's a little limited on the feet. I think the defense is a little bit there. He's there to be hit.
Might only get him so far. Quick word from you, John, and then we'll do our picks from the prelims. I'm pretty sure I know what everyone's going to say anyway, but go ahead. Go for it, John.
Knockout of the year?
No. This.
I think it's right up there.
I think it's up there.
Well,
I think the way Mitchell fell and slept, and his body, whatever was doing afterwards, quite scary. It was probably one of the scary knockouts this year. I'm happy for Josh Emmett. Like he said, he had a shitty 2023, losing to the interim belt with Pantera, then losing to Poirier. And it was a nice way for him to finish 2023, and we still hold him to high regards. He's still in the top 5 now, definitely defended at the 5th ranked position. So he could definitely go back, fight in top 5, maybe get another chance. He's 39 years old. So it was a nice win for him. Scary knockout. That was also the second punch of the fight too. So it's still knowing that he still has that power. It's gonna
makes him a threat to anyone.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know if you remember, Nathan, in the previous show, you mentioned that if Bryce Mitchell does beat Emmett, that'll be his highest ranked win. But we'll see. And I'm starting to think that you are right for once. So I think yes, Mitchell is lacking some on the feet striking power or something. Yep. So Mitchell probably be in that top 5 to 10 range, and will defend. Will beat some people, but we'll lose to some. Yeah. That's my quick word.
Right, boys. Prelims. I mean, for me, it's only one fight. You mentioned Cody Garbrandt. Obviously, really happy to see him back in the winning column. But Irene Aldana, I mean, that is how you bounce back from not throwing a punch at Amanda Nunes, right?
Yeah. I don't think anyone can really question her again after that. That was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It was just violence from both ladies. Neither one of them took a step back. I mean, I thought Aldana was cooked because those leg kicks were absolutely wrecking her. She was just, she wasn't able to adjust anything. She wasn't checking the kicks. She couldn't move out of range. She was just moving forward with that boxing heavy stance and basically getting absolutely battered by Carol Rosa. And I was a little bit concerned because it looked like she just couldn't change it up, and she didn't do anything different for me. She just kept plodding and kept plodding and kept plodding, and as Carol Rosa's gas tank just drained a touch, you know, I'm not saying there were any gassing issues there, but she definitely obviously didn't have the speed and the pace, and wasn't as bouncy on the toes as she was, as we see with all fighters in all these fights. And I just think that Aldana just wore her down. And, you know, the boxing was beautiful, as it always is. You know, she was lighting her up, and it was just a crazy fight. And it just goes to show, like, when people talk shit about the women's divisions and whatever else, you know, we've seen it with Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Zhang Weili. You know, we've seen so many of these fights where you go, fuck me, what a fight. And that was one of them.
This is one of them, yeah. This is definitely one of them. Probably best women's fight this year. It's on par with Weili and Joanna. If only this was 5 rounds, who knows what could have happened. But yeah, another prelim fight. Manifield versus Jacoby.
Yeah,
bit of a slugfest, kind of. But then fun fight. But me just got knocked down. That Manifield had that power in the 3rd round, just knocked down Jacoby, and I think that's what got him the win. Because first round can judge anyway. 2nd round, Jacoby got a bit too comfortable and then got
it was so back and forth, wasn't it? I think the difference was obviously the power, because I think Jacoby landed potentially cleaner on Manifield on a couple of occasions than the other way around. But the reaction from Jacoby every time Manifield landed clean was just frightening. You know, you could see he was seriously hurt and showed some serious bollocks as well. I give him that, because Jacoby kept pushing for it and he stuck in there, and I think you'd have seen a lot of other guys fold nice and early in that. Like I said, I thought it was great to see Cody get back to winning ways, and I thought he looked pretty good.
Yes. Looked so back.
Looked good on the feet, moving well. Defense was there. I mean, we need to have a little shout out to Brian Kelleher's hair, because what the fuck was that?
Whoa.
Jack Cartwright.
No idea.
Stuff, wasn't it?
That was dreadful. He deserved knocking out for that, but to see him face plant Brian Kelleher just showed Cody's still got the power, but also he looked great on the feet. I was a little disappointed with the
good.
call out. Obviously called out Davison Figueiredo. Don't get me wrong, great fight.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's what Cody needs right now. I think that's a mistake. I'd have actually liked to see him call out Dominic Cruz. That would have been the way to go for me.
Rematch.
Get it back with Cruz. I think Dom would have snatched his hand off at that because he wants that one back. And I think it just gives Cody another chance just to keep ticking along. It's a nice big name. Someone he's beat already. They puts him back there. So yeah, they were the ones for me.
And I mean, that'll take us home, gents. We've had a couple of little tasters there to put in your minds. Fight of the year, knockout of the year. We will be back over the Christmas period. We will see you guys after Christmas for our wrap up of the year show. And then after New Year for our predictions, titles, fights we'd like to see, storylines we might see come out. Hopefully Colby Covington getting released. But Nathan, it's been a pleasure. John, it's been a pleasure. Merry Christmas to you both. We will catch you in the next one. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, mate.